Well, those are the dulcet tones of a nighttime podcast coming out in the afternoon, unexpectedly on a Sunday. I'm Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage. This is the Missing Lynx Podcast, part of the Hitting the Hardwood Network. And we have network founder, Lynx extraordinaire, Mitchell Hansen. Also writes for Windsor, Canis, just about everywhere you can find WNBA content. Mitchell writes for. How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be. This is my debut. I'm happy to be on and chatting some Lynx.
This is the debut of Mitchell and Andrew talking for more than 20 minutes in person and not on text. So, yeah. Mitch, nice to see you, man. Thanks for coming on
as well.
On no notice. I'm going to let some people get in here before we start officially breaking down to the DiJonai Carrington trade. We'll also probably touch a little bit on the Alyssa Peely 7-day contract to the Sparks, just because I feel like we owe it to her. She was on the Lynx for a year and change, but we'll throw over to a quick ad read here quick. And then when we come back, we'll start breaking down the trade. Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Lynx podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back. So we both wake up this morning to some pretty crazy news. I think everyone maybe had an inkling that a trade was going to go down. Diamond Miller gets a DNP last night. That's a little weird. Ask Cheryl about it. She successfully dodged the question, saying they just wanted to see more Kosu minutes, which looking back on it is like, yeah, all right. But we wake up today and the Lynx acquired DiJonai Carrington for relatively, I hate to say nothing, because Diamond Miller has meant so much to this franchise, especially as the second overall pick, but she's playing 8 minutes a game. Carly was out for the season, and a second round pick in 2027. It on its surface, it seems like Cheryl just kind of cooked everyone on this deal. Mitch, what were your initial reactions?
Yeah, I mean, I initially had thought, after we saw the DMP for Diamond Miller last night, I thought the same thing. As I know I was talking to you and Terry about it as well. It seemed like there was something in the works, and now looking back on it, that's exactly what was happening. But when I was thinking about it later on in the evening, every scenario I kept going back to was they have to throw in Carly's contract to make this work if they're going to be getting an impact player like that. And yes, they probably could have got somebody, I don't want to say lesser than, because then that means that I'm knocking them, which I'm not doing, but to somebody at the caliber of DiJonai Carrington, or even a Marie Mabry, or whoever that player is, ended up being Carrington, they needed to add Carly's contract to that. And honestly, I mean, a lot of players that you're going to be trading for, or that are in the league right now, they're all on expiring contracts anyway. So it's kind of a horse apiece. You're taking a chance on that, and they're not mortgaging their future just for right now, which is, I think, a win-win. When you look on the other side of things with Diamond Miller, I mean, for her personally, this is probably the best thing that could have happened for her.
Yes.
I do think a fresh start is really key for her, as well as just more playing time. That was kind of the downfall of being in Minnesota. She just, unfortunately, injuries earlier on in her career kind of slid her down the depth chart, and she just hasn't been able to battle, or kind of bounce back out of that, or kind of battle out of that. And she works her tail off, and she keeps a positive attitude all the time, at least in the public light. And I think that's the same behind the scenes. But her getting extra playing time in Dallas, and also playing with, a Paige Beckers, they like to push the pace, they like to run. That's Diamond Miller to a T. Yeah. So that is perfect for her, I think, too. But I love this trade. I absolutely love the trade. It's worth a chance. It's worth a shot. The second round pick, that's a no-brainer add-in to me. I think that, this is it will end up being a great move. Minnesota needed to make a move, I think, especially with New York adding some pieces. It just felt like this Lynx team was one piece away, or maybe a couple, contributors off the bench, away from being a really solid team. And I think just maybe one move away like this one, to being dang near unstoppable, because they already have been to this point. Now they're even better. But what do you think of kind of the initial reactions of the trade?
People on the Lynx beat will know DiJonai is probably in my top 5 favorite players to watch. Not saying she's a top 5 player in the league, but players like DiJonai, who I wouldn't consider her a dirty player, but she is a chippy, intense, ferocious player. I mean, if she's playing low man and you got a free layup, she's going to make you feel it. If she is going to get picked and she notices it before it happens, she's going to put an elbow into your body. Like, she is the type of player that this Lynx team just doesn't really have.
Right.
So I love it from that standpoint. The other thing is, this is a Lynx team that is the number 1 defensive team in the league, and they are adding a first team all defensive player from last year to come off the bench and replace BC and K-Mac, who are arguably all defensive caliber players. The embarrassment of riches that Cheryl's going to have on her wing and guard rotations is wild. And I would agree with you with Diamond Miller. I think, unfortunately for this Lynx team, when you're going to play 5 or 6 minutes or 10 minutes, Cheryl is going to value defensive intensity and not making mistakes over all else. So even though Diamond's having a good shooting season, even though she's been showing flashes, the turnovers, Cheryl's just not going to tolerate 2 turnovers in 6 minutes, or Diamond hits a 3 and then doesn't get back right in transition, or hits a nice layup and then gets a technical called on her. It's just not a way to break through on this roster. Now in Dallas, where they're not going for a championship this year, that's perfect for Diamond. She can have her mistakes. She can get more play time and kind of grow. She can have technicals and they're not going to, cost her minutes. So I think it's great for Diamond. Carly, I think it sucks for. I mean, it seemed like she was really well liked on the team. I don't know exactly what WNBA requirements are for a player like Carly who's injured and gets traded. My guess is she's probably not going to be going to Dallas. She's been working with TCO with her recovery. She's been working with the Mayo Clinic. Those are kind of the providers that have been doing all of her surgical work. My guess is she's probably going to still be in the Minneapolis area, especially since she's not going to play for this team probably ever, because her contract also expires. So you look at it that way of you traded Diamond in a 2nd round pick for an all defensive caliber player. Ben comments in here, most improved in 2024 as well, which most improved. And seems like the perfect fit for Cheryl, someone that just team first, isn't afraid to do the dirty stuff. She already has a relationship with Court and Yvonne. If she ends up sticking around, I think it's a great move.
Yeah. The nice thing too is, to go back to your point about being a fit. Yeah. I mean, personality wise or kind of being familiar with the team. That's one thing you see with all of these players, that they've played with each other at one point in their career, which is great. I mean, the chemistry is there to some extent. And I think that's obviously by design. But the other thing is too, she is a Cheryl Reeve player. She is a gritty, nitty player that will go, do things on both ends that's needed to be done. You look at a Jess Shepard, somebody that just goes in there and does everything. That's a Cheryl type of player. DiJonai is kind of the same way, that she maybe, will have, some, I don't want to say off nights, but quieter nights offensively, but she makes a solid impact defensively, or vice versa. So that is the type of player that Cheryl loves. But then on the other side too, it's intriguing to think about how she might mix in with the starters too. Let's say if Bridget Carlton is not, producing well, or she's on an off night or whatever, you can throw DiJonai into that slot and play her there with the starting, the other four, which is a really nice option to have, especially when you get to matchups in the postseason and, a series, and especially just down the stretch of the regular season and just kind of conserving bodies and in minutes. But it's a great move. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, why are they adding a guard? They need somebody that's more of a wing. Well, DiJonai is basically a wing player.
Yeah.
Anyway. She just has the guard position, but it's a great fit. And I think she'll have a little bit of extra motivation too. I mean, you come from a team like Dallas that's, sliding down the standings. They're not going to be making the postseason. They're young and learning. And now she goes from that to a team like Minnesota that's, the odds-on favorites to win it all, or at least reach the finals. But I just saw something on X, actually, the rich get richer. That's kind of how it looks. And, Cheryl is kind of the master of in-game adjustments and in-season adjustments and making things work and figuring things out. And this is just another example of that.
It's so interesting that DiJonai is the piece they chose to add too, because I think everybody that looked at this Lynx team kind of thought, oh, they need more of that feisty edge on them. They could use another perimeter defender, like if a shot isn't falling for BC, or K-Mac is, needs a night off or something like that. She kind of just hit all of the right marks. I know there's been some talk still of like, oh, well, can they go out and get a post player in free agency still? My pushback on that has just kind of been, how are you going to play that person? If he's going to play 35 minutes, that gives you 5 off the bench. If Land's going to play 28, that gives you 12 more minutes. So then you have 17 minutes for Jess and whoever they bring in. It's going to be so hard to find a post player that's better than Jess to get minutes. Whereas DiJonai, the minutes kind of come naturally. I mean, now you don't have to play K-Mac 35 minutes a game. Put her down to 28. There's 7. BC probably doesn't need to play 34. Get her down to 28. There's another 6. You get the 5 from Diamond. Maybe Court and T are now playing, 22 and 18 minutes respectively. And there's more of a balance there because they don't have to overlap. It just seems like roster wise, this was a really good fit. Mitch, I do want to just get your thoughts on, DiJonai in Dallas is not having particularly a great season. I mean, shooting sub 40% from the field, 26% from 3, career high in turnovers with 2.5 per game, career high in personal fouls, points per game is down. Do you attribute that more to just being asked to do too much on a bad Dallas team, or is it, more of the DiJonai is kind of as good as the players around her?
I'd say maybe a mix of both. I do think that she was, and I don't know this for fact, so I'm not reporting anything, but I do think she was kind of unhappy in Dallas in this whole situation there. I mean, she was traded there. I mean, she didn't really necessarily choose to go there. So I do think that was maybe a little bit of a factor of the motivation factor was just not there. And it was just kind of a lot of frustration and just not a good mix. I do also, I mean, it is tough when you're on a team that's young and learning like that and maybe doesn't have the best talent around her. She's not necessarily an initiator where she'll, start the offense or kind of, that's where I see the turnovers, that maybe she's kind of playing out of position a little bit and out of her role, where Minnesota, she doesn't have to really do any of that. She can play off ball. She can just kind of be, off into the corner if she really needs to, and then really focus on defense. I think that's the reason they made this move more than anything was her defense and her perimeter defense, especially. Minnesota's been a great perimeter defensive team anyway. When it comes to opponents and their success from 3, I mean, I was just looking it up. Their opponent field goal percent or 3-point percentage is the second best in the league, which is, it speaks to their perimeter defense and kind of focusing in on that area. I mean, they're already the best defensive team in the league to begin with, but as well as the best offensive team. But I do think that it's a little bit of who's around her too. And we saw that in Connecticut too, when she had a great supporting cast around her, when she was on a good team with good players around her, she was great. And she played into that role of, coming off the bench or even, in the starting lineup and just kind of doing what she does and contributing in various ways. And so I do think that I put a little bit of an asterisk next to what has happened so far, just because of what team she was on. And I think it would have been maybe the same thing if she was in Connecticut still and wasn't traded to Dallas. But I do think we'll see a little bit of improvement in those areas. And, if she can at least help a little bit from three, I think that'll be a huge boost off the bench, just because they don't have that, like a Carly Samuelson coming off the bench that can really help this team from deep. But so I do think that, long story short, I think it's just kind of a mix of both. And I think the fresh start for her too will be a good kind of reset and kind of recharge. And like I said, she's already familiar with most of the players too, so it's a good personnel fit as well.
Cole dropped by the chat here saying, DiJonai does have kind of this. I'll summarize his. DiJonai does kind of have this not perspective. This people have the idea of DiJonai as kind of a net negative on the teammate side. Mm-hmm. He mentions a toxic teammate. I mean, what I'll say is, covering that Connecticut series last season, I was able to talk to Stephanie White a couple times about her, about DiJonai, and she raved about her, that she does all of the little things right. She holds herself to a really high standard, and that's when she's not playing at that standard, especially defensively. Sometimes she can get a little, body language poor. That can kind of show up a little bit, but from pretty much everyone I've ever talked to about her, they rave about her as a teammate. I think her, how she plays naturally is going to get under opposing players' skin. Right. She's not, like I said earlier in this, she's not a dirty player. Like, she's not someone that goes underneath a jump shot and tries to get someone's ankle to roll. She's not stepping on people's feet as they're jumping up for rebounds, but she is very physical and she's very ferocious. If she thinks she can strip a ball, she's putting her whole body into it, not just poking at it. So I think there's just this weird dichotomy of maybe opposing players thinking she's more of a problem than she is, because everything I've heard is that she's awesome. Mitch, I wonder if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I do think the external perception of her is that she is kind of a negative player to add to the locker room. But I'll say one thing about that is, Cheryl Reeve does not add players that are toxic to their locker room. I mean, Cheryl's familiar with DiJonai. Players on the roster are familiar with DiJonai. They don't add, Cheryl talks about it all the time. We want to add good players. We want to add good people. And this, if they were doing this for just, strictly just what she does on the court and she wasn't a great locker room presence, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that was a big factor in making this move. It is with every decision this organization makes. I kind of don't really take that into account too much. I mean, you have passionate players all over the place. I mean, you could say that, sometimes K-Mac has negative body language. It's just, she's a competitor and they care that much. And I agree though. Everybody behind the scenes usually says great things about DiJonai. I mean, you look at her relationship with Paige Beckers too in Dallas. People after the trade, I was seeing on social media, I'm gonna really miss the DiJonai Paige kind of relationship. Well, I mean, if she was a toxic player, she maybe wouldn't have liked the incoming rookie or wouldn't be kind of helping her along. I do think I get where Cole's coming from. I get where other people are coming from too. I totally get it. I see the same thing, but also we really started to see that in Dallas too. And that goes back to my earlier point of, I think she was just kind of frustrated with being there and didn't necessarily want to be there and just wasn't happy with that situation. So that you have to kind of take that into account too at the same time, I think.
I'm going to throw us over to one more ad read. When we come back, we'll talk Peely. I saw a question about Yvonne as well. We'll chat about her and answer any fan questions before we get out of here. And we're back with another ad read. This time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. Someday I will edit that where the com stays in. The com is in on the recording, but not on my edit of it. So anyways, Elsie asked here, just our thoughts on Yvonne, given that she got a couple minutes the last time against the Aces. I mean, my thoughts on Yvonne is that she's probably going to get signed for the rest of the season. She has a relationship with Courtney T. You don't want to upset your point guard rotation by bringing in a point guard, but if you bring in a point guard they like, that usually goes pretty well. She's also played with DiJonai in Connecticut. She has relationships with K-Mac in BC. She's played with Fee. She's played against Lan and Shep. She kind of knows how this team works. And my kind of first reactions of her at her, kind of scrum media press conference was that she's just a really solid pro, said all the right things, seems to be taking it really seriously. She legitimately is good friends with BC and K-Mac. She was here visiting them when she got the call to come down and sign a contract. So I think she played well enough to kind of justify her being that garbage time point guard. What do you think, Mitch?
Yeah, I do think she's a supporter. She's a good locker room presence, a good kind of cheerleader off the bench, and somebody that could come in and step in when needed. But I do think that's when you're looking at this position or kind of like her spot in the rotation or even on the roster, like it's at that point you're kind of getting that supporting cast that that somebody will help lift up the team. But also, like I said, could come in and provide some minutes. But like you said, she has a tie to almost everybody on this team, so she's familiar with them. And like she said, that whether it's true or not, when she got the call to sign with the Lynx, she was already in Minneapolis, or she was already in Minnesota visiting, what she said, her friends. I don't know if that's true or not, or if she was here because she was signing. But either way, she, like we said, she's close with a lot of people. She seems like she's just a solid pro and just kind of understands things. And that is valuable. That is very valuable to have, whether it's in the locker room or in a game, just to kind of calm everybody down and kind of have that person there that people can vent to if they're frustrated or whatever. And I do think that, ultimately, unless somebody unexpectedly kind of becomes available that they think is a better fit, I could see her just, signing for the rest of the season and them just riding with her, especially with where they're at salary wise. Like it just kind of makes sense to fill that role and have somebody, that's kind of a cheaper contract to come in and fill that spot.
And my kind of biggest thing on that is then you don't have T playing up 25 with 3 minutes left in the game, which you just don't need that. If anyone does have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments here. If I don't see any more, we'll wrap up after we talk about Alyssa Peely. But Peely also got a contract today to go play for the Los Angeles Sparks. Kind of makes, she played at USC for a few years. I'm sure they were aware of kind of where her game is. And I mean, it's a 7-day contract. Hopefully she can go in there and maybe stick around. Mm-hmm. She's a really good person, a good locker room fit. I think with the Lynx, the kind of decision to let her go was kind of like we talked about. There's just a log jam at the power forward and center position. She's not going to be playing anywhere. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have hope that she's going to really develop into something, you might as well let her try somewhere else. What was your thought?
Yeah, I'm happy that she landed somewhere, and I hope it's a permanent or at least rest of the season kind of relationship in LA. What Cheryl said after after they ended up waiving her, is that, it was kind of in her best interest of, when you have a player like that needs playing time and is not getting playing time, what good is it that she's on your roster? Okay, maybe she's a great, locker room presence, whatever, but she needs to get some playing time, and she needs to be able to kind of develop and establish that. And it's just, it's not a knock on her, but that wasn't going to come in Minnesota. It's just, she didn't have a big role. And now she needs to find somewhere like in LA, or maybe it's another team the rest of the season that she can get some playing time and improve herself. Because I do think that's important, especially at a younger age. It's similar to Diamond Miller, that they need to get some playing time, and a fresh start is sometimes for the better. But I'm happy for her. I'm glad that she found somewhere. It's going to be weird that it's in LA, but that's forever be anytime somebody goes there, it's always weird to me, but at least it's not Simone Augustus, so we're good.
Could you imagine leaving the Lynx to go play for the Sparks? That just treason. Couple related
Cheryl
questions here.
I'm pretty sure Cheryl has a rule that you cannot wear yellow or purple within team facility, like kind of within the grounds of the facility.
A couple people ask over on YouTube. Chu says, we still have a small front court. Raheem says, do you think the Lynx are done because of all the trade values not being as high in usual years because of players being rentals this season? Is the buyout market going to be a major factor? I could see them. My personal read on it is I think they probably just give their last, whatever they have left for a vet minimum to Yvonne and just sign a point guard for the rest of the season. Mitch, I'll throw it over to you though. Do you think they do need front court help, or that there might be some buyout players available?
I go back and forth on this, because yes, it would be nice to have a kind of a traditional big. They are a little small, but especially when they're playing, a team like we saw against Atlanta, when Brittany Griner was just kind of taking it to the Lynx. They don't have that presence in there, but also at the same time, that's not the style really that Minnesota plays anymore. When we had, when it was the Sylvia Fowles era, they played inside out. Now it's more, 5 out, kind of running the floor, pushing the pace, diving, dashing, shooting threes. Like it's more from the outside in. So I don't think they necessarily need it, to be honest. And the Jess Shepard edition this season is huge off the bench. I think if you are looking at, maybe what the Lynx had last year with Dorky Uhas in that spot, then maybe I would say you might need to add somebody because you need that inside banger, player in that presence. But Jess Shepard does a nice job with that. She does all the dirty work inside off the bench. And if it gets to a point where they need to have more of an inside presence, maybe they throw Jess Shepard in a little bit more. She gets more playing time. So I agree with you. I do think that I don't want to guarantee that they're done, but I think they're done for at least now. I don't know how the bio market's going to look like, to be honest, just for, a lot of these players are expiring at the end of the year anyway. So it's kind of let's just hang on to them, and then they'll be gone in the off season anyway. But I do think they're done. And I would say that, they do need another guard too. I mean, like a point guard, that a ball handler, and Yvonne is that kind of player. So it just kind of makes sense. And I think they're pretty set now.
It also, the other side of it is when you're talking free agents and buyout markets, like obviously it sounds like Emma chose New York because the financial implications. New York could pay her twice as much as Minnesota could. I mean, I'd go get your money. I'm never going to tell someone not to go get paid. The other thing with Minnesota is if you're a free agent center coming into a new CBA and you have an offer between Minnesota and Connecticut, I mean, it kind of makes more sense to go to Connecticut and get minutes and set yourself up for a contract than be the 12th woman on a Minnesota team. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be tough, but I think they're probably done. Elise, I'm thinking that's how you pronounce your name. It's not Elsie. It doesn't look like an Elsie, so I'm going to say Elise. Asks if we've heard anything about Fee's ankle. We'll close with this question. I have not. I did send a couple text messages out that were left on red. So shout out to those people that left me on red instead of saying no comment. But I think it's better that we're getting no news. Cheryl runs a very tight ship over with the Lynx. Nothing gets leaked out. But if Fee had like a grade 3 ankle sprain and was done for the year, that would have gotten leaked out. Like that would have been somewhere. I also think it's good that it's an ankle and not a plantar fasciitis issue or something that is more severe that Fee has kind of dealt with for her whole career. Now, that being said, the Lynx have a 6-game lead for the 1 seed. They probably don't need to play Fee against Seattle unless, she is full go. But, I also wouldn't be surprised. Fee doesn't like sitting out of games. Mitch, have you heard anything though?
No, I'm the same way. And somebody asked me on social media this today, kind of to your point what you were talking about, like if it is something serious, they usually send out an injury update via press release or on social media, whatever it is. I'm thinking back to the Carly Samuelson injury. Like we heard of that almost right away that they provided an injury update. Yeah. So the fact that we haven't heard anything, I think, like you said, is a good sign. Now, that's not saying she might miss a little bit of time, but I do think, we'll learn more on Monday. I mean, the team usually after games is kind of pretty quiet, and they don't really do much after games, understandably, but especially when they're on the road too, that makes it even harder. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll know more Monday, but if there is anything serious, we probably would have learned it, or we will be learning it today. But I don't know. Yes, it's not a good injury by any means. Anything that happens to Fee is not good. You never want to see that happen. But
correct.
The fact that she, was able to, kind of walk off the court on her own power, that is a good sign. And I know I did my best lip reading attempt. There we go. Lip reading after the game. I know Cheryl and Becky Hammond had kind of stopped at midcourt, shook hands, and you could tell that Becky asked how Fee is doing, and you could see Cheryl mentioned, or she said something. I couldn't kind of make it out, but she just kind of nodded like she'll be all right. And now whether that's true or not, we'll see. But yeah, I don't think it's incredibly serious.
And if people are really worried about it, the Lynx send out a day ahead of game injury update, which Mitch tweets out, I tweet out. I'm pretty sure the entire world that covers the Lynx tweets it out, but we will probably be tweeting out something of an update of, at least if she's out, doubtful what it is, tomorrow when we get that. I lied though. Cole asks if the DiJonai trade moves the needle for, the championship rematch that I think everyone is kind of assuming is coming. I would like to hear your take on it. I kind of mentioned on social media, I don't think it makes the Lynx like the presumptive favorites to win it. Like I think going into a 7-game series, it'll still probably be Liberty in 7. That would, or maybe 6, because Lynx will have home court advantage. But I do think this moves the needle a little bit, makes it a little bit more of a 50-50, 55-45 type of series instead of, the Liberty are going to win. Yeah. We'll close with that, Mitch. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think, like I said earlier, Minnesota needed to make some sort of move. This is obviously that move, but they needed something to kind of keep pace with New York and the talent that they have and are bringing in. Yes, Minnesota's ahead in the standings. They have a comfortable lead. That doesn't matter when you get in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter if Minnesota's the 1 seed or the 7 seed. You still gotta produce in the playoffs. You still gotta beat those teams. Yes, you maybe have a quote unquote easier path to the finals as a top seed, but you still gotta focus on yourself and be playing your best basketball at that time. And I think DiJonai helps with that. Specifically when it comes to the defensive end, like we talked about, like Minnesota's, before the DiJonai trade, they were the top offensive and defensive team in the league, as well as like 5 other categories. They're a good team, but this obviously helps. I mean, that's one thing with Diamond Miller. She maybe wasn't as strong defensively as DiJonai is, and that's an improvement. So I'd say if you're kind of measuring that, and if it is, moving the needle, I do think it moves the needle in the right direction a little bit. But we'll see once we get into the postseason and see how it's a whole other world when you're talking about a team in a 7-game series or even a 5-game series or whatever. And now some people might look at these upcoming games against the Liberty and kind of use that as a measuring stick when it comes to what we could see in the finals or in the playoffs or whatever. And I kind of caution people in doing that just because New York is banged up. We're probably not going to see Breanna Stewart for most of those games, if not all of them, as she kind of battles back with her injury. But once she gets back healthy, obviously that's, an MVP caliber player that is returning to the lineup. That's like Minnesota being without Fee, and then all of a sudden Fee comes back. They're obviously going to be better. And then the Emma Meesman addition, I do think that, that throws a whole other wrench into things when it comes to the Liberty. But they're deep. Minnesota's deep. The series, if they match up in the finals, will go deep, and I think we'll be in for a fun matchup again. And these teams, every move that New York is making and Minnesota is making. I know I talked to ESPN's Ryan Rucco on my latest podcast. I asked him, I was like, do you think that these two teams are making moves, with the intention of, okay, this will make a difference against the Liberty, this player will make a difference against the Lynx? And he agreed 100%. That's what they're doing. They're both making these moves with the other team in mind that they're going to rematch in the finals. And now it's just kind of that chess match of what piece fits here, what piece fits there to try and, counter the other team. But I do like the move a lot. Like I said, now if we're looking at Marina Mabry and she got traded, in this situation, she gets brought into Minnesota, I think it moves the needle even more.
Yeah.
I mean, Marina Mabry is an incredibly great player, but it's, it does move it a little bit. And I think sorry to keep rambling, but I do think Emma Meesman was probably plan A for the Lynx and trying to get somebody in. But this is just plan B, and it's still a good plan B. It's still a good trade and still a good addition.
Completely agree with all of that. Let's wrap the pod up here. For people that came in late, this will be published tomorrow morning, Monday at 7 a.m. If you want to hear me ramble more about the DiJonai Carrington trade, I will be on ESPN Radio 1570, I believe, for South Dakota's Lynx affiliate tomorrow. We are going to be talking an hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. about just Lynx. So with that, Mitch, anything you want to plug?
Just everybody can go check out Hitting the Hardwood. Obviously, check out our podcast that we have here. My Hitting the Hardwood podcast, Andrew's the Missing Lynx podcast, which you're listening to. Terry Horseman's Lynx Happy Hour. Like I said, just check out Hitting the Hardwood. If you like our work, want to support us, head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Hitting the Hardwood. And then just follow us on social media. You'll find all of our written work too. I'm lucky to be able to work alongside two great guys like Andrew and Terry, who do a phenomenal job. And they also put up with me. So that's a skill in itself. But no, I appreciate you having me on, and we'll have to do this more often.
100%, man. And to the 450 plus people that have come by the live to check it out, appreciate all of you guys. This is why we're doing it, because there's not enough Lynx coverage out there, and y'all deserve it. So with that, until the next time, go Lynx.